Um, Both of our speakers have also let us know that they're willing to take some questions during the presentation, but we've also built in some time following their remarks and their shares of their screen for you to ask questions. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Melissa and Richard, and thanks everybody for coming.
Hi, thank you for joining us. As you stated, I'm Melissa McGehee, a GIS data analyst, and I also work with our open data program. Today, we're going to be talking about Tempe's urban forest, and there we go. And we're going to talk about the benefits and values of it, why we do it, give you an overview of the tree and shade coverage dashboard, which is a resource that we've created for the public to access the data and use it, and how to find data on trees and shade coverage and other data available in the city. Let's make sure. Okay, trying to monitor the so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Richard to give you an introduction to trees.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Richard Adkins. I serve as the urban forester for the city of Tempe. So I've kind of taken this collection of data that Melissa has worked on with a lot of other people, and I try to put it into action as we try to grow the tree canopy here in the city of Tempe. So I'm going to give a brief review of some of the benefits and values of trees. I'm going to talk a little bit about some numbers, and then we're going to actually go through the data. And between Melissa and myself, I think we can do some actual hands-on manipulation of this data and so show you how to find things and to look up stuff. I will tell you straight up that the data is constantly changing, because I was just out pruning trees this morning. We actually removed a few. We planted a few yesterday. So it's a very dynamic data set, and we're updating it all the time. And we're getting ready to do another complete canopy update this summer. So this is kind of a snapshot in time. A lot of it updates as we go, but just so you know, it does change. So if you look at it this week and then come back and look at it in 3 months, it might actually be a little bit different. So with that, I'm going to stop my video just so you can focus on the slides, and we'll go from there. So generally, I mean, why do we even care about trees, right? I mean, some people don't actually like trees. I mean, I run into about 50% of the people that just do not like trees in the city. They are a nuisance. They have problems with them. But then there's other benefits and values that the other 50% of the people do like. And I like to look at trees as infrastructure for the city. And it's something that if we're trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle and provide a sustainable growing environment, not only for us today, but for the future, I think it's very important that we have good green space and trees growing along there. You'll see here on this slide, it's basically you break down benefits and values into 3 categories, which is environmental benefits, economic benefits, and then the societal benefits. I think the environmental benefits we're all fairly much aware of, improving our air quality, help conserving energy if they're placed appropriately around our homes, reduces storm runoff. It does rain here occasionally, and when it does, you know how hard it comes down. And bare soil, it tends to run off and carry the soil with it and create erosion. The more roots we have in the soil holding it in place, we have less runoff and erosion. And of course, it provides habitat for wildlife, our trees and our green spaces. Now, a lot of people are less familiar with some of the economic benefits, which they actually can increase your residential property value as well as your business properties. Rental rates seem to be higher on properties with nice landscapes and trees outside. Even shopping areas, it encourages shoppers to linger around and, you know, It decreases the heat over pavement, so we have a lot less paving maintenance that needs to happen in some of these neighborhoods. So there's a whole host of economic benefits, but some of the more important, in my opinion, and there's been a lot of research over the last 10 years, is the societal benefits, just the reducing stress and mental fatigue. And this is where it comes in to have a healthy lifestyle in our urban environment. I mean, some people grow up today in dense urban areas, and some of the urban forest is the only forest they know, or the only forest that they see. And so just getting out in that green space really does give you a breath of fresh air, right? It does enhance community pride. It does help restore communities and bring people together. We can get into the history of how Tempe and Phoenix developed when people used to be outside prior to the 50s, when air conditioning was invented and everybody was outside under the trees, and now everybody went back inside. The roads got bigger, shopping areas were built, and the trees kind of got marginalized. But with that, it's also just our mental health and just recuperation rates. It's been shown that, if students can at least have a window outside or have a break to see some greenery, they actually have better learning retention. People recover from health maladies with being able to go outside and even touch trees and see vegetation. And there's lots of studies that have gone on about birth weights being higher, lower respiratory disease rates in areas throughout the country where there is more tree canopy. So just putting that all together, the benefits and values of trees as a whole to the community is just something that we really strive to work for. And like I said, it can be challenging. We try to work with everybody's needs and wants, but you understand pleasing everybody can be a challenge. We try to work with a diversity of species as well as age, and we'll see some of that age data here coming up soon. Because it's just not all one species, because if we have something that happens, a pest or a disease that comes in, you want a variety of species so that they can survive and we won't be at a loss like you see in some of the neighborhoods in the Midwest and the Northeast with the emerald ash borer. These are just some pictures of parks and street trees that we have here in the city of Tempe. And the whole thing is, with some of the data that we'll see, we try to look at equity throughout the city as well. And we don't plant all in one place. And I use a lot of this data, like Elizabeth and Melissa referred to help planning when we either get donations from corporations or we have planting projects that we're going to put in. We try to make sure that we have equity throughout the city. And it's not just a combination of natives and drought tolerant trees you see here. I can't just do all natives throughout the city. There's just some places, like in our recreational parks, you can't have things with spines and thorns on them. So we tried to work through with different adapted species. And basically what all this means is that Tempe really cares. Tempe City Council, mayor, and management really want to work to grow and manage our urban forest. And that's why I was hired. I have a lot more numbers that I can easily go through why we're a Tree City USA. We have been for 27 years. We're a Tree City of the World, recognized by the Food and Agriculture Organization out of the United Nations. We have been for 4 years. And just to give you a good breakdown of last year, the city of Tempe, we planted 1,000 trees. We pruned 8,237 trees. We did remove 470 trees. Trees do need to be removed. I also have to maintain watch over the liability for the city as well. Trees are an asset that we want to maintain, but we also got to keep it safe. All told, last year, the city of Tempe spent about $2.5 million on tree-related maintenance and planting projects, which works out to be about $13.43 per Tempe resident, which is quite good compared to other municipalities here in the valley. So on to the inventory data. I keep inventory data for every tree that city maintains. And I think that's where Melissa is getting ready to go into and start looking at some of this data.
Yes. I'm going to switch from the PowerPoint and go to the dashboard itself. So give me just a moment. All right, so yes, this is, if you go to urbanforestry.tempe.gov, you'll see this site that has a lot of information for you about our trees and shade coverage. I'm just going ahead and accept the cookies, so that stays away. But what this gives you is it gives you some background, an explanation of the purpose of this. If you keep scrolling, you'll see some highlights.
I'm not seeing your screen, Melissa.
How did it? Oh, okay, hold on. I'm sorry.
I don't know if anybody else is.
Did it go away? Let me try again. It must have been when I switched. All right, can we see now?
I can.
All right, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. So now I'll start over. So here is the urbanforestry.tempe.gov site. And you scroll down, you have the background and introduction, and then a quick snapshot of some data points. So we have 156 different species and varieties, a little over 27,000 trees on Tempe maintained properties, as well as our canopy cover. And then if you keep scrolling, there's some other quick snapshots of environmental benefits of trees. And the part that we are focusing on today is our applications. So there's these 3 different applications that have data for you available. The first one is the tree benefits dashboard. And again, make sure you read the description. It tells you what it's about. This one down here gives you some information on how to navigate, which I'll also show. So if you click on the link, it'll take you to a new tab. And like anything on the internet, it might take a few minutes to render, depending on the speed of your internet. And this is what you'll see. I'm going to show you quickly how to navigate it, and then I'll let Richard talk about what it all means. So some quick things to know. If you notice, these little cards give you some data, and there are tabs. And so you click on the tab and it shows you some more information. So pollution removal in ounces and the dollar value. So you can click on each of those. And down here or over here, you can filter by species of tree, and it's by scientific name. So Richard, can you give me a name to search for?
Search for Prosopis, Prosopis.
Okay,
And right now, everybody that's online, I do have them set up in scientific names. When we redo it, I'm going to make an option so I can have common names.
But as you see, as I started typing, it filters down to matches with that. So I'm just going to
select all, Melissa. Select all right there, so it gets all the different varieties of Prosopis, which are all the mesquites.
And then I can close that for now. And then you can see that the map filtered to just that species of tree. And the cards all updated to relate to the data that is now showing on the map. And then down here is the diameter, so at standard height. So you can also filter even more if you want to look at ones that are 10, and then it filters it down further. So you can click on that and see what's at different bigger trees, smaller trees. So that's just some navigation there that is available for you. And if you need to clear it, you go back over here and reset, and everything comes back. So Richard, I don't know if you want to speak to any more on what's.
No, you did a very good job. What you can do, another way of selecting, if you just scroll in to make the map bigger.
And you can also use the plus or minus.
You use a plus minus, and you can move around. You can see the number of trees change because it comes to what's in view. So you could maybe just kind of hone in on a park by your home or a particular street. And as you get closer, it just narrows them out and it changes the number of trees. That's one way. And if you just click on any of the green dots, any separate dot, it'll tell you exactly what that tree is and give you the environmental benefits of just that tree. So there's so many different ways to select the data here. This is just a quick summary, and you can sit there and play with that for days.
Okay. So that's the first one. And if we go back to the dashboard, you'll see there's the trees benefits map, and we click on that. And again, depending on your internet connection, it will vary as far as how long it takes to show up. So again, this one, similar data, you click on it, it will tell you what species as well as the environmental benefits. And you can also, there are a number of layers that you can select. Richard, I don't know if you want to speak to any of these that might be of interest.
Unclick the heat, unclick the carbon, go up to the top, and click on the pollution removal, the second box. It does take a bit to load, and you can see where the groups of trees are and where those, it's kind of just the general information about the importance of pollution removal. And that's in dollars, and you can do it in ounces per year if you click the box under it. And it kind of gives you kind of the heat map from low to high and of coloring to show you where areas of trees actually provide more benefit. And you can zoom in on them a little bit and look at different ones. It does take a while to load here. There's a lot of data and information working on this. I'm going to work on this summer to see if we can make it move a little quicker. But just some ideas like Melissa has there that just gives you a general idea about water runoff. If you were click on the water runoff one, where groups of trees can have more benefit of water runoff versus, carbon sequestration versus pollution. Just give you a good general idea of certain areas of the city where our trees are growing and the benefits they provide.
Yeah, that heat one is taking some time there.
It does take a while to load.
And then another thing too is if you notice, I'm clicking on this little arrow here, and that will give you the legend for that layer. So you can see the dots, the smaller dots are smaller trees, and the bigger dots represent bigger trees. So.
And you can still click on any of the dots here, and the data for each one will come up.
Yes.
So still have the same data as the previous dashboard, but if you're looking at different things and you want to, you're looking at the pollution control here and you want to see what species is in that particular area, you can still look that up.
And going back to our dashboard, we have the tree canopy cover map.
this is one of the more exciting ones, I think, but
And similarly, you can click and it tells you the canopy cover for this is by census block and the equity score and the environmental benefits. Likewise, this one has different layers. Most of it's canopy covered by different geographies, so census tract, zip code, character area. Do you want to add anything about maybe the land use? I don't know if that one would be.
yeah, bring up the land use, take that one off, and then just really zoom in on it, and it just breaks it down so you can see the different zoning of land use around a certain area. And if you click on any of that, it tells you what the land use is, and it gives you the percent cover, canopy cover in that area. The environmental benefits, I want to make a note, that's only of trees that Tempe maintains. It's not every tree that's in private property. So that's why you'll get to some of these lots, you'll say, wow, that's not very high, and it's a very green area, because there's maybe a few street trees or only a park in that area that Tempe maintains. Just to make that point. It is nice to go back and forth between the census tract and the census blocks and kind of just move around. Click on any of them. And if you scroll down on the right-hand side of that pop-up, and you can see what the land use is within that census block. It's a lot of information, I agree, but it just, depending on what you're researching and looking for. One of my favorites is down at the bottom, next to the bottom, where it says canopy cover change by census tract. And so what it is, we had two data sets, one in 2010 and one in 2019. So you can click on any of these and see whether it increased or decreased within that census tract. And then we can look back and see, well, what really happened over the last, 9-10 years around the areas to kind of see why did it increase, why did it decrease. And you can break that down by, really dive into that data. And there's also, you can see the equity scores when you go back up to just the canopy data by census tract, and that's a measure between 1 and 100. Based on work that comes out of Urban Forest. And it kind of just gives you the idea of where I can look to plant things or plant trees or, whatever, to make sure that I'm working equitably throughout the city. And I can target programming there, work with neighborhood services, reach out to champions in that area and try to work with those people. Really robust data here. I just think there's a lot of information to drill down into.
And then going back to the dashboard, just so you know, there are some frequently asked questions down below. So you can scroll down to see those. And then a little bit of information about the tree inventory itself.
Hey, Melissa, we do have a couple questions. Is it okay if I share those with you now so they're on your radar?
Yes.
Okay. In the chat, it looks like we had one from Ira. Is the scale for DSH in centimeters or inches was the question.
Ira, it is in inches. Diameter at standard height is measured at 4.5 feet above grade. And these measurements here are all in inches, not in centimeters.
And then we had another question from one of our joiners, Elaine, who wanted to know, one of our exercises when I was in grad school at Oregon State in about 1982 was to select one established tree in town and assess its value. I chose a mature deodor, DEODOR cedar. It added about $10,000 value to campus. So just something Elaine wanted to share with everyone. That's kind of cool. She also wanted to know how many other municipalities have these sort of tree dues and tree data.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, it's really fun to go and see like our total structural value. You know, we're approaching $60 million if $63 million if we needed to replace all of our trees. And that's just the structural value, not always the environmental value. City of Phoenix has some data like this. It's not quite as robust, but they are really working on it. And I know Scottsdale and Mesa are working on similar data, but I couldn't tell you if it's this developed yet.
Also had a question from Kim. Is this just canopy trees or are saguaros and palms included? Good question.
I have it written on here somewhere. Palms and tall cacti are included and are all part of the inventory. If you search for different types of fan palms or date palms, they are listed, as well as saguaros. I do have ocotillos on here. I do not have any of the smaller cacti. And I will say with the saguaros, we do have them all inventoried, but I'll be honest, we don't tell you where they all are for various reasons. I'll tell you if you want to. Oh yeah, you found one right there. Very good. I was going to say you could choose those. Most of them are in our preserve, of course, but yes, the answer, they are included in the inventory.
There are others. Let's see. The region, I'm not sure about the regional. Do you know, Richard? Is there an effort to have a regional GIS tool?
Oh, I didn't hear that part of the question. I apologize.
That's okay.
I think we are working on it. We being a group of the municipalities within Maricopa County are working on county-wide tree equity maps. They're available now, but we're trying to combine all of that data. Nothing as robust as what we're seeing here because not every city has its own inventory that it maintains, but there is an effort to move toward that goal, yes.
And then a follow-up, is there any effort to develop a tree cover base database for private as well as city land?
I'm going to say yes, and we're working on that. That's a lot harder to, now I'll follow that up with, it's a lot harder to grab that data and capture it. Some people are very nice and want, here's the trees that I have, and here's their size, and some people not so much. So, you know, respecting the private property rights, it can be challenging to capture all of that data. The canopy cover number you see there at 11.4, that captures all of the city of Tempe from a canopy standpoint, but the numbers and the values are only reflective of the trees we have measurements of that the city maintains, the 27,600.
And yes, I think that, yes, is that total cover over the entire city, or is it limited to Tempe maintained properties? It is to the city maintained properties, correct?
The total cover is the entire city.
Oh, total city, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like we did also, we include the town of Guadalupe because we partner with them on some projects. And just like the town of Guadalupe as a total is 6.5%.
And then another question, can you give an example of how trees reduce psychological precursors to crime?
From numerous studies that I have reviewed and talked with other academics, it brings a certain calmness to a neighborhood, as well as people seem to have more community. So people are more out and looking around and keeping an eye out and seeing what's going on. So there's more of a community feel that helps kind of, from what I can see, keep nefarious activities kind of down in a way.
And I'm going to move on to the next part, but if you have any other questions, we can stop again later and answer those. I'm going to move on to our open.tempe.gov website, which has all of our city data that's open, available. And so you can scroll down and you can see the measure, performance measure, website, the data catalog, open books, and our data academy. You can click on any of those to see those resources. There's also up here at the top some navigation. I'm going to start with the data catalog. So if you were wanting to see the tree data, you can go in here and type in tree. And there's the few options that pop up. There's the tree inventory and it says data here. This one says Tempe tree and shade coverage site. That is the dashboard that we were just looking at. And then these are our performance measure related. Anything that says a number in front of it is our performance measure data. And I'll get to that in just a moment. So if you were wanting to say, look at the tree data, here's a familiar looking map. It really should be by now. And again, it does have the same or similar pop-up with those environmental benefits as well as the species. But you can download it here. But it's always good practice to take a look at the details of any data that you come across on the web to get a sense of what the data includes and how it was created. It also has contact information, how often it's published or updated. This one is every 5 years, roughly. Also over here are some important details, when it was last updated, and when it was created. So it was published in October of 2021. The data was updated in December. Info was updated, so that means this text was updated January of this year. So just gives you an idea of how recent the data is and whether it's being maintained as well. If you are trying to understand what the different attributes or characteristics are, like this lists what they are here, but you might not know what they mean. So if you scroll down here to the data dictionary, and this is on all of our open data data sets. So there's a data dictionary for all of them. This gives you the field that's available, an example of what it looks like, and then a brief description. So this can be very useful resource for trying to understand the data that you're looking at. So I just wanted to point that out, that the data dictionary is there. So you have some options. You can create a map of your own, but you can also just go in here and download it. And keep in mind that the bigger the data set, this one has 26,000 records, could take some time to download. So just keep that in mind as you're working with this data. Most likely you would want to download it as a CSV, which is similar to a spreadsheet. And so you can click download and then open it. And this is all of the data in a spreadsheet form. So if you're trying to find out maybe about a specific species, or, you know, maybe looking at the diameter, things like that, that you can filter, you know, just like in an Excel spreadsheet, and find information that way. That's one way to use the data. Going back to that, I'm going to go back to the data catalog, and you can search for a number of, you know, of data sets. If you're just generally curious to know what kind of data we have, you can also just click on data. And this will take you to a listing of all of our data that's available, which you'll want to filter because there's quite a lot in here. So it is somewhat better to do the filtering here. But you can also scroll down and there are categories. So that helps to filter. And then down here we have some resources similar to, well, as you see here, the Tempe tree and shade coverage is here listed here. But these are some other websites that we've created that focus on a particular program or data set. So we have character area planning, our COVID-19 indicators, homeless solutions, Tempe general plan, hometown for all. So these are all here, and you can click and explore those resources, and you can keep going, and there's more. This one's by what's most recently been updated. These are the most viewed. You know, it's anything from development projects to public art. You can also view everything here by clicking the view all gallery items. So again, just if you're wanting to know where art is and you want to go when it's cooler, maybe go and explore that. There's a map available. Tracking. So just so you know, these kind of resources are available. You just go to the open.tempe.gov and, or actually, sorry, the faster way is data.tempe.gov. And again, you can see the different data art that's available in the city. And let's see if I can get back to, oh, I did not want that. It's in my way. No. Well, I'll just go to it. Sorry, I somehow got out of it. So back to this. As I mentioned, the tree coverage is a performance measure. So we can go to our performance measure website, performance.tempe.gov, and it lists all of our strategic priorities. And you can click on these icons to see the performance measures that fall under those those priorities. And so the tree one falls under sustainable growth and development. And this takes you to a listing with a snapshot of all of our performance on each of them. You can also use this as a table of contents. So tree and shade canopy takes you down to that one, and it shows you the baseline and our target and where we currently are. You can also click explore the performance measure, and that takes you to a site that's just focused on this performance measure and explains the performance measure and the actions and strategies that are being taken to meet that goal. So I just wanted to point that out, that is a resource that's available as well. Another thing that we have is the Data Academy, which has videos on how to interact with a map, how to use ArcGIS Online and create an account where you can make your own maps, how to navigate our data catalog that I just showed you, and the performance measure dashboards that I just showed you. So those resources are there, as well as some free GIS related resources that are offered through software company Esri that we use to create our maps. And then our about. This is, sorry, let me get these cookies out of the way. So one of the things we like to know is we want to know what works for you, what you need. So if you have any feedback or questions or there's an issue with the data, please come to the about and click on this form and let us know what your question is or what the issue is so that we can look into it. And then if there is a data set that you think would be useful to be open, fill out this form, let us know what it is if it's not already currently available. And we will review that and see if it is possible, one, if we have the data and if it's possible to publish it. And there's some further information, but the main thing on here is these two forms. We'd like to hear from you. See if it'll let me switch back to this. Okay, so your turn. How do you see yourself using this data, specifically the tree data? Anybody want to share how they think they might be using this? And you can take yourself off mute.
Well, I can say as a member of the Desert Conservation Commission, it's extremely important for us to be able to keep track of that. And even though I may be aware of it walking through, to actually notice what has gone down and what hasn't gone down, what is thriving, what is not thriving, which species have been doing the best, which invasive species are extremely important, I think, for the management of the preserve.
Right. Just keeping up with the questions. Great, that's great. Very real life example. Thank you. Anybody else? And then what other data outside of tree data? This is more for us to gather feedback. What data do you think would be useful? If there's a project that you're working on, or you're working with an organization, or even like the neighborhood grants program, anything like that. Is there any data that you can think of that, just so it gives us feedback to know what we need to present to you and make sure if it's not available, see if there's a way to come up with that data. Can anybody think of any? No. And if you can't, that's fine. But again, if you do think of something, please use that form. It's important to us to make sure we're providing to you what is useful. And then real quick here.
Melissa?
Oh, yes.
It's Elizabeth. Sorry. One thing that we do get questions about sometimes is not so much the city data, but the census data that you just mentioned in passing. It's very involved, and there's a tremendous amount of confusion at times about how it can be used or even made sense of. So is there any opportunities to have a city hosted workshop that helps explain some of the basics of the census data?
Oh, wonderful. Yes, thank you. That's very good to know. Making a note of that. Thank you. And just here is a quick, these are the websites that we visited. And I'm going to give Richard a moment to talk about the cost match tree program.
I need to see your screen going back.
I'm sorry?
Going back to the PowerPoint, because the websites that you just mentioned I cannot see them.
Oh.
I'm still seeing your screen.
You can't see the PowerPoint? Oh. Okay. Do you want me to go to the cost match site?
That would be, yeah, that's fine right there. So what I just wanted to end up, we had a couple of websites to get you back into all of this data, but you should be pretty much familiar with it now. I would like to just bring one to your attention, which is tempe.gov/Tempe trees. That's a /. And that takes you to our cost match tree program. I mean, we've had some discussion about private property. And, you know, the tree, some of the data that we have is only on the public property, as you might imagine. Well, yeah, the 40 square miles of Tempe, I mean, we only maintain, we being the city, about 2.2% of the property. So a lot of it is private property and single family residence. So to kind of assist people to help plant trees on their private property, our cost match tree program will provide up to 50% of the cost of up to a 24-inch box size tree. And you can just go on there and look at the website. I won't belabor it now. There's a little application you put in, you draw a map to show you where you're going to put it on your property. I'll review that with you. I do not have restrictions on types of trees other than we want the appropriate tree for the appropriate location. If you want a fruit tree, I can help you with that. If you want flower, you want shade, you want a small patio tree, the whole idea is to keep you and the community interested in planting trees and caring for them. So I'll work with you to make sure you get the right one for your property. I will purchase the tree. I will deliver it to your property. It is up to you to plant and maintain after that, but we're always here to provide you any technical assistance along the way. I invite you to look at this program. 50% of the tree, generally the size trees, 24-inch box that we're buying is about $150. So for at the upper end there for $75, you'll have a nice tree that we will pick and deliver to your property for you. Just a nice way for that the city is looking to help our residents put trees back on their property. Just wanted to make you aware of that.
And that's really it, other than questions. So let me see, I'm gonna look at the chat. Okay. All right, are there any other questions?
It takes a little bit of time, folks, for the recordings to be available, but once they are, we will let you know. When we send out the link to the recording, we can also include the websites that we talked about today. There were about 4 or 5 different ones mentioned, so we can give you the friendly URLs to those. And if anyone has any more comments, or if you have any suggestions for future data workshops, I'm sure Melissa and Richard would be happy to hear about them.
Okay, we had one last question from Elaine. How is it different from the program where we buy a tree and get reimbursed up to 50%?
I believe, Elaine, that is through the water conservation department, and that has to do with xeriscape and changing and converting your property, or either putting in a more xeric or desert landscape, and they'll pay up to a certain portion of some plants on an annual basis. I believe that might be the program that you're referring to. That can be trees and or shrubs, I believe.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? Oh, got here. Okay.
So I was wondering, since you said a lot of people don't like to share what varieties of trees they have on their property, have you ever thought about putting out just a general ask if anybody's interested in inventorying the trees on their property and, you know, including them into the census, if that would be a possibility?
That's a very good question. And yes, Melissa and I were just talking about that last week on open source data that we could have available for the community to put, you know, their own trees in there. I have a little trepidation with that because we want to make sure the good data is going in. But, you know, as long as we can check on that and make sure that it's all in order, we have been talking about that and look forward to that coming in the future.
Thanks.
Well, if we don't have any further questions or comments, we're gonna close out today's session. So please speak up if you had something else you wanted us to look into or to share. We really appreciate everyone making time on their lunch break today. Oh, there's Ira with the hands clapping. Thank you. To make time today for Melissa and Richard to share this valuable information. And if something comes up after this where it pops in your head or 2 o'clock in the morning, you think of something, you can always email neighborhoods. That's neighborhoods plural symbol at tempe.gov and say future workshop suggestion, or here's a tree question. Can you forward it over to Richard or Melissa? We'd love to hear more about this data. We can definitely connect you guys after the fact if something pops in your head later, okay? Well, thank you, everybody. So next we'll share the link. It takes a few days for our video crew to have it prepared properly for sharing. So probably next week sometime we'll be in touch with everybody that RSVP'd today. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.